1 o'clock. It's 48 minutes after 1. 49 minutes after 1.
Okay.
So it's just,
Going backwards?
you know, it's going down.
Okay.
It looks like it's, yeah, it's going up. Yeah, anyway. We are ready. Okay. Yep, yep. Just don't scream over there. Okay. Right, okay. Well, we're together again. This was a special meeting set up to find a time when we could get you, Lamont, into town. And we were lucky to be able to coordinate this, and because we want to continue on hearing the story of the Stallings family.
Absolutely.
And the last time we met, we had some great stories, but I couldn't pass up the chance to hear from you. And this article that you're aware of,
Absolutely.
the guy who helped make this happen lives right across the hall from me, where I'm in Linden Ponds.
Wow.
And he's in charge. He was in charge. He's retired now, but he was in charge of Life photography.
Okay.
And that's what Life was all about, you know, that magazine. And so I asked him how to get a hold of this, and he said, "Go to the Boston Public Library," and that's what I did, and get a copy of this. And it's a great story. So I'm going to read a little from this, but I'm going to, I want to hear from you. This is just to kind of kick it off.
Okay.
Because the main thing is I think you have a great story to tell.
Okay.
And want to hear that.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to, the title of it is Against the Odds, which is kind of a Life does that kind of. They have something that grabs your attention. Against the Odds. What's that about? In inner city Detroit, a young survivor. Lamont Williams, 14. You're 14 years old at this time. Lives on a mean street on Detroit's west side. His bedroom window overlooks a sidewalk staked out by the neighborhood whores, and each night Lamont can hear cars pull over to the curb and the whispers of prostitutes offering their wares. This is for a kid 14 years old. Most of them, quote, "most of them are dope fiends trying to support a habit," he explains. Lamont has witnessed his own parents' dependence on drugs, and his older brother was picked up last summer with 7 packets of heroin. He was charged with trafficking and is now in a juvenile home. At school, Lamont saunters away when friends roll out the pot. "So I'm a sissy," he says to them, not concerned with their jeers. Well, it goes on. I'm not going to read the whole thing,
Absolutely.
but it gets into it. It's pretty dramatic kind of a start.
Absolutely. I think, you know, that was a sign of the times back then, you know.
This was in a rough part of the city.
Absolutely rough side of inner city Detroit on the west side, you know. I think I was one of many children who had that upbringing, you know, drug-addicted parents, being around drugs, being around all types of, you know, bad things. But I think the article just pinpoints a young guy born to heroin-addicted parents, living in the ghetto, just trying to be different and embrace how different I was. You know,
Yeah.
I knew my parents were addicted to drugs. I knew my brother was into drugs. I knew my grandmother was an alcoholic. I was amongst all of that.
Yeah.
But I think it was something that's in me that I was just born with, just to be different.
Where did that come from? I mean, because you'd expect, that's against the odds, you'd expect in that kind of a situation you would have gotten into that.
I think I've always had the hand of God over my life. You know, I think God just had angels around me, and He sent me one, you know, to raise me, and that was my mom, to basically just show me a different type of life, to steer me away from that, to show me unconditional love, to show that showed me a different type of world, and to see that there's something else that's different out there, that I don't have to be, you know, amongst all of that anymore. I can be different. I can have a different type of life.
Yeah. Well, let me shift to Gladys, because you saw something in this kid that struck you, that you wanted to help him, bolster him, support him, but
I saw I saw determination in him. I would keep, there were 4 of them, and I'd keep at least 2 of them every weekend, most weekends. And
so this wasn't the only one.
no, the older one was hit by a car when he was about 4 years old, and he was in a body cast, and nobody would go. The family couldn't pick him up, so the hospital let us pick him up, and we kept him for about 3 or 4 years. We sent him to school, and he had a learning disability, and they wanted him to, he needed special education, and they reminded me that they didn't have I didn't have custody over him, and when I asked the parents for custody, they refused, because there was a court suit for when he was hit by a car, and he was going to have money when he was 18, so they wouldn't let him go. And but Lamont kept calling saying, "Gladys, come get me. I want you to come get me." And he called me one day. He says, "Gladys, I'm so dirty. Please come get me so that I can clean up, you know." And I went over, and his mother and father were laying on the couch, and kids were running all around. They were high. So I took him, and I kept him. And we had a very good relationship. And I had asked the parents for custody because I realized if something had happened to him while he was in my care, I might be sued like the other man was sued. So when I asked for custody, they refused again. So I sent him home.
Parents?
The parents?
Yeah.
So I cried, and before I could finish crying, he was back. So I think he must have went home and raised holy hell. She said, "Gladys, meet me downtown tomorrow, and I'll sign over guardianship." So that's how he became my son.
Absolutely.
That's an amazing story. And you already had, it wasn't like you had 2 kids and you wanted a third.
No, this was my 9th, although I had other kids in the house. I must have helped raise about 5 or 6 more. But Lamont was always very precious to me. For the first year that I had him, I sent him to a Catholic school where he could kind of get himself together, and they had the meditation and the prayer every day, and I thought that was important for him because of his past. And the second year he went to Cass because I was getting kind of broke.
And what is Cass?
Cass Technical High School is a very good high school.
Yeah.
But in the meanwhile, Lamont was a dancer. He loved to dance. And he said he danced because there was a television program on when the kids were left alone before I got him. And that's how he learned how to dance. And he had a lot of talent with dancing.
You just taught yourself.
I just mimicked.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was something, the show, the program she's talking about is Fame. You know, it's one of those shows. Yeah. I just watched and I just mimicked. I think it was my way of escape.
Yeah.
You know, just to see something and dream.
Yeah.
You know, and I gravitated towards it, and that's why I eventually became.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the stories he would tell would almost make you cry. He was saying how he hated to be the one to have to go out and steal food for them to eat because there was no food there, no parents there.
Yeah.
And they had to take turns going out.
Yeah, we had to, I remember a story, that's so funny. You know, my mom would we'd go to like different stores and stuff like that. And I think it's a common practice in the hood or in the ghetto where, you know, they had to use the children and stuff like that to go. So we won't be a watchful eye over it, and we'll boost the food and stuff like that, and we'll put the stuff under our clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do remember that.
Yeah.
So they were kind of training you almost.
Training you, but I think that was just the way of survival back then. You know what I mean? You know, not only was it just, you know, you had the element of, you know, two parents who were addicted to drugs. You have two parents who basically were poor too at the same time. You know what I mean? Who did whatever they could. I know my biological mother prostituted herself, you know, selling drugs, doing whatever they could and everything like that to try to sustain their habit, but at the same time to eat or to get shelter, whatever.
Yeah. As you talk about that, it was like that's just kind of the way it is.
Yeah, it really is. You know, I think about it, I never really, even though I knew innately that I was just trying to be different, but at the same time, I didn't see myself really as a different person because it was the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think once you're poor and you see it around you, you just think that's just the natural way of being.
That's what you do. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you just did what you had to do. But like I always say, you know, I always felt my whole life, you know, I think during those intimate moments I had with God, that He had a watchful eye over me, and that He would send people to guide me, to, you know, to certain places to get me out to where He wanted me to be.
When I was the pastor at the 14th Avenue Church there, I can remember I'd go around and visit people at their home, knock on their door and stuff. And there's this one home I went to where the mother, the child's name was Ishmael, which is, you know, the Bible, that's a terrible name to put on a child.
Right.
And the kid was just angry. And he wouldn't, the image I have of him, he was in a dark, like in a closet or under the steps or something where he wouldn't come out. I could see his eyes shining and stuff, but he wouldn't come out. And his mother said, I don't know what to do with him. He's, you know, he's just, but that was represented. Now, I don't know as I ever made touch with them, but you didn't, you know, that wouldn't surprise me that someone would become angry and resentful at the name and where he was living and how, but you didn't turn to anger. Something different with you.
No, I couldn't. You know, I don't think anger would have changed the situation. You know, to have that type of.
But that's a rational thinking.
That's a rational type of thing. You know,
I mean, it's a rational thinking like that. That you don't deal with anger because well, it's not going to help me.
Right.
There was something different with you.
Yeah, I just think it was just something just innately that I had. You know, like I always said, you know, I think God, you know, it was all in His divine plan, you know, that He had for me. You know, even as an adult now, you know what I mean? I still feel like a grasp over my life, you know what I mean? That He has and the purpose that He has for me.
Yeah.
You know.
The other thing that struck, and as we were talking with your brothers and sisters and your mother before, the other thing that struck me was the way you supported each other. There was a family there that really reached out and supported, and you could count on. And my hunch is you felt part of that. That was what you were coming into.
Yeah, I am the baby, right?
He's a baby.
I'm the baby. You know, that's one thing that I remember. You know, when I first started coming to the house on the weekends or on the holidays, I saw such a strong sense of family, get-togethers, sing-alongs, and stuff like that. You know, I remember. You know, Granny, you know, would be at the house and stuff like that. Everybody would be there and stuff like that. And, you know, and she made this an effort for everybody to embrace me. This is Lamont, this is my baby. It wasn't like, this is Lamont, some boy I'm taking out, this is my baby. You know what I mean? She just instilled that. And I think amongst, you know, Clifford, Terry, Willa, Donald, Derek, everybody, you know, I was just the ninth child and stuff like that, and they treated me like a little brother, little sister, and embraced me, you know what I mean?
Which isn't always the case, you know, an adopted child coming into a family, kind of like, and you're getting special treatment, kind of.
She wouldn't have had it no other way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's just how she is as a mother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the whole family, you know, this is how it was. It was just love, God's love. Around.
But his oldest brother just had it in him, I think. One of the things I told him is that you can stay with me as long as you stay away from drugs. And so he was living with me, and once the police caught him with some marijuana with some friends. And I kind of, you know, I counseled him, and gave him another chance. But then the next time, I just told the police, you have to call his grandmother, you know.
Yeah.
Because I had so many minors in the house, we couldn't have
We
drugs
couldn't, yeah.
on top of that,
Yeah.
you know. But I never had to worry about Lamont with things like
Yeah.
that. He was, I think that the neighborhood he grew up in, I worked there for many years as a parish worker
At 14th
at
Avenue.
14th
Yeah.
Avenue.
And that was before you went into social work, right?
Before I went into social work.
You were a social worker
Then.
from the get-go, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But let's see, I forgot my.
Well, you were a parish worker at the church, and that was part of that community.
That was part of that community, and
Yeah.
my daughter Willa was very instrumental, and she helped. Ricardo was really her baby, she thought, but we had to let him go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked last time about IALAC.
I am
I
lovable.
am lovable and
Yeah,
capable.
yeah.
And I feel really,
That's still going today.
it's still going, and I feel my children participated in it, and my grandchildren, and this year I have 3 great-grandchildren that are participating. So
Yeah.
it makes me feel real good that it's a program that will continue beyond me.
And you were instrumental in starting that.
Yeah, I started
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I started it from the school system because the social work, the teachers would become very disgusted with some of the acting out kids. And they would say, go see your social worker. So I changed my name into the IALAC worker. And big doors, my
Yeah.
big door
So
said
it wasn't a
IALAC.
negative
Yeah,
connotation to it.
Yeah, they could go see the IALAC.
It's like, go see the principal.
Yeah, so then when I retired, it just continued with the school
Yeah.
system. But I was going to mention when I was working at the church and I went to Lamont's father's funeral. I was amazed because many of the young kids I had worked with were there, and they didn't have teeth, and they were poorly dressed, and I was just taken. I cried all the way through the funeral, and Lamont was kind of puzzled because he says,
Why are you crying?
"Why are you crying? I hardly knew him. I'm not sure he was my father, but it wasn't. I was crying because of all the talent, all the wasted talent that I saw in that funeral parlor, and I was just overcome. And you think you try to be a blessing to others, but some of the kids just didn't make it, and I was just overcome seeing so many at the funeral.
Yeah.
They were saying, "Oh, hey, did you see so and so? He's laying back there trying to look good." Another body, just accepting that this is how you're going to live. You're going to live. You're going to die early, and they accepted it.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me
To see.
to see.
Yeah.
So, so Lamont thought I was crying over his daddy.
When then, how old were you when the riots took place in Detroit and that whole?
Well,
That
the
would have
riots was
been-
I was born in '72.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was before
It
you.
was right
yeah.
before my time.
Yeah.
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 And I call that a civil uprising.
Yeah.
I think it was the haves against the have-nots.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. The riots is the white man's the power structure is named for it.
Right.
Rebellion is or uprising.
Yeah,
is
it was a rebellion.
yeah. Yeah.
That's because I lived in an integrated neighborhood, and we saw blacks and whites. They emptied a furniture store,
Yeah.
with one on one side of the piano and the other one on another, cursing and pushing.
That's the other we've remarked before. I've always been impressed by the sense of humor that you bring to it. Even in the darkest times, there's joking and not in a cruel way, but in a supportive way.
She has, survival tactics, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Interested to hear about her upbringing and stuff like that, and what her mother and father instilled in her.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, for her to have
That's
such
an amazing story.
It's an amazing
Yeah.
story, and just to see how she just took that on to, her godliness. You know what I mean? It's just so amazing to me. You know, like I said, I'm not the only child that she's embraced. you know, and to love and stuff like that. It's countless others, you know, out there. So, you know, she's a very special person. Like I said, God sent me an angel.
Yeah.
You know.
And we've remarked at one point you had on that shirt with Mom's Angels.
Oh, and everybody laughed.
And the list, I want to make sure we get a picture of that for this.
Okay.
Because it does, you referred to it earlier, that you were an angel.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never had any problems with him except once.
Oh, gosh.
She had to bring that up, huh?
He was going to cast, and we had sat down and made an agreement because he loved to dance, and he did have a lot of talent. So this dance teacher was going to give him free lessons, I think 3 times a week, at his studio in Bloomfield Hills. And he was going to take a commercial course at cast so that he would learn how to take care of himself. So the counselor called me one day when I was at work and said, Mrs. Stallings, I just want you to know your son has been skipping school. And I said, no, not my son. He doesn't do that. So he said, Mrs. Stallings, get a pencil and sit down. And he named this whole list of things he had been doing. Skipping school.
What was going on?
You know, I think, you know, I remember that walk down the hallway. That's the thing. I totally remember how upset you were. I think during that age, you know, as any teenager and stuff like that, you know, I would do the Nutcracker every year at the Fox Theater in Detroit. And at Cass Tech,
you don't mean attend it.
No, I performed in it every year and stuff like that. And at that time, I was just embracing that. I knew I wanted to be a dancer. I didn't understand why, you know, at Cass Technical High School, you had majors. So
but you didn't dare tell Mom.
Couldn't, because she said, you're going to major in business administration. You're going to learn how to get some computer skills. You're going to learn how to type. You're going to learn some skills to support yourself while you perform.
She was looking out for you.
Absolutely.
In her way.
So I tried to do something, you know, unbeknownst to her, but she did find out. So I had to change it. I had to change it back.
Yeah,
and that I did.
Yeah, he was doing that, going to the Fox every day.
Yeah.
Performing.
So when did you leave Detroit then?
Did
you go right
after
to
high
New York?
school? I went to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and after I graduated, I moved to New York 2 months later.
When did you go to?
I graduated University of Michigan in 1996.
In '96.
Yes, and everything. So then I went to New York afterwards, studied at Alvin Ailey American Dance Center for a year or so, and decided that I wanted to pursue more like commercial, industrial type of industrials, musical theater, dancing in New York, and that's what I did. And I just recently stopped dancing about 10 years ago.
Do you miss it?
The passion is still there and everything. I'm interested in doing stuff behind the scenes now. I'd rather get into choreography, producing, writing, and stuff like that.
So you're going to see a Lions King or something like that?
Well, I'm actually working on a project now. It's a coming of age story, pretty much my life story. A coming of age, a person finding his purpose, finding his voice, and it's told through the music of Michael Jackson that I've been working on like the past couple years now.
So we should look forward to that in the future.
Still working on it. It's still we're work in progress and everything, but I think it's definitely going to be my baby that I'm trying to get on Broadway. Yeah, absolutely.
We haven't talked much about music and the impact of Motown and Michael Jackson and.
Michael Jackson is anyone who would tell you how much I'm like the #1 fan of Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
So
I was recently. I went back and looked at some of the old tapes of Michael and his life story, and it is amazing.
Yeah,
his ability to just learn things, hear them, and
his legacy will definitely live on. I mean, we passed June 25th was 5 years since he passed.
Yeah. Did you ever meet him?
Never met him. Just love his music, love his story. I think in a lot of ways, I kind of, in terms of my shyness growing up and stuff like that, I kind of just saw him as someone just like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever like that.
We all do that.
Yeah.
I think. There's heroes in there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely an inspiration of mine. Absolutely.
Oh, great. Well, maybe that's a good way to draw this to a close.
Okay.
We'll look forward. There's more to come.
Absolutely.
There's more to come, both for you and for Gladys.
Absolutely. She has, I think, her gift to the world, you know, her, like I said, her godliness, you know, just love, unconditional love.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I said, she's still very much involved with, you know, the summer program, ILAC. And I think that's what she's going to do until she leaves the earth.
Yeah.
I think that's what her purpose,
Yeah.
you know, is. Don't you agree, Mom?
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Well, thank you. And more to come in terms of who knows where this will go. We talked about last time with Donna in terms of the book, some warmer. So I can't forget it, but Wilkerson, Isabel Wilkerson.
Okay.
The In Search of Other Warmer Suns, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah.
The book. And I want to see if there's ways that we can connect in terms of that, but more to come.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.